No one really warns you about the silence that comes after retirement. People talk about financial planning, about traveling, about free time, but they don't talk about the stillness, the kind that makes your mind start spinning late at night. I've seen it in my own life and in friends around me. Men and women over 65, some living in small towns in Germany, others in sunny corners of Arizona. They all say the same thing. I thought I'd be free, but my mind just won't rest. The truth is, after decades of structure and noise, the sudden quiet can stir up a kind of anxiety that sneaks in quietly. It's not weakness, it's the brain trying to adjust. But over the years, I've also seen that there are daily habits, simple, gentle things that help bring peace back into that space. Things that don't just pass the time, but truly calm the heart. In today's episode of Elderly Reflections, I want to share 4 of those habits with you, drawn from senior health research, personal stories, and a bit of elderly wisdom collected from real lives across Europe and North America. Stick with me, because if you've ever laid in bed wondering why you feel so unsettled, this might just give you the quiet your mind's been searching for. And before we begin, do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That way you'll never miss more inspiration, motivation, and life lessons from the elderly, right here with us. Let me tell you something a lot of people don't talk about after retirement. It's not the finances, not the health worries, not even the loneliness. It's that strange feeling you get when you wake up in the morning and there's nothing. No place to be, no meetings, no deadlines. Just you and the ceiling. Now, to someone still working, that might sound like a dream. But to those of us who've been in retirement for a few years, especially those over 65 like me, we know that silence can grow teeth. And the mind, when left alone too long without purpose, becomes a very noisy place. That's where anxiety often begins, quiet, creeping, and constant. One of the things that helped me, and countless other seniors I've spoken to, both here in the US and across Europe, is something incredibly simple. Morning movement, not a workout, not jogging, just walking. Silent, regular, intentional walking. It might sound too easy to matter, but trust me, it works, and it works deeply. When I first retired at 67, I thought I'd enjoy sleeping in, easing into the day. But after a few weeks, I noticed something wasn't right. I'd wake up already tense, heart a little fast, thoughts jumping from one worry to the next. What am I doing with my time? Am I wasting it? Should I be more productive? And no matter how much I told myself to relax, I just couldn't. Then one morning, I remembered something I read in a health magazine about circadian rhythms and the elderly brain, that we seniors actually need light and movement in the morning to calm the nervous system. That it helps the brain know this is day, this is safety, this is time to reset. So I gave it a try, put on my sneakers, zipped up my jacket, and walked. Just around the block, 15 minutes. Nothing fancy, but that day felt different. My breathing slowed, my mind didn't spin so fast, and I slept better that night. There's science behind it. Studies from Stanford and Oxford show that seniors who get early daylight, exposure, and gentle movement first thing in the morning report lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and improved sleep quality. But I don't need a study to tell me that. I felt it in my bones. Yeah, no, not the only one. Let me tell you about Roger. He's 71, from Manchester in the UK. Spent his life as a postman, walked more in 1 week than most people do in a month. But after he retired, he told me, it's strange, isn't it? I used to dread waking up early, but when I stopped, I felt lost. He said the quiet was too loud. That's how he put it, the quiet was too loud. His doctor suggested keeping a bit of his old rhythm, maybe a short morning walk. Roger thought it sounded pointless. Why would I walk if there's nowhere I need to be? But he tried it, just once. Around the canal path near his flat, he saw an old man feeding ducks, heard the morning train in the distance, and felt something shift. Now he does it every morning. Same coat, same boots, same bench halfway through. It gives me something to start with, something that tells me I'm still in this world, still part of it, he told me. And that, my friend, is no small thing. Then there's Maria from Florence, Italy, 68 years old. Her son is a medical student. She told me she'd wake up feeling heavy, like something was pressing on her chest, even though nothing was wrong, just anxiety floating in the morning air. Her son explained how natural light resets serotonin levels, helps regulate sleep, mood, even digestion. But Maria didn't want a light therapy box. She wanted something real, so she started walking around her olive grove just after sunrise. 10, maybe 15 minutes. The light comes through the leaves like lace, she said. I used to cry before coffee, now I breathe before coffee. That's how she described it, and I understood exactly what she meant. For her, the light wasn't just brightness, it was warmth, rhythm, proof of life. And let me not forget James, 75, living in Minneapolis. Had a heart bypass 2 years ago. Before that, he was a contractor, big strong guy, always in control of everything. But after surgery, after retirement, he told me, I felt like I didn't own my body anymore. The doctors told him what to eat, when to sleep, what pills to take. It stripped him of something, but once he was strong enough, his wife encouraged him to start walking in the mornings, just a few steps around the lake near their house. The first day, he said, felt like nothing. The second day, still nothing. But by the end of the week, he told her, that's the first thing I've chosen for myself in months. Every morning since, he walks that loop. Stops under a big oak tree on the west side. Stoots his spot. He calls it his thinking tree. Every step is mine, he told me once. That path doesn't tell me what to do. I walk it the way I want. And one more I'd love to share. Bernice, 70, living in Toronto. Her husband passed 4 years ago. Since then, mornings have been hard. The kind of hard you don't tell your kids about. She said the silence made her feel like she didn't exist. One morning, she decided to take a walk through the neighborhood park. No goal, no plan, just walk. That first morning, she passed a man with a cane, feeding pigeons. The next morning, he was there again. So was a woman jogging with a golden retriever. After a week, she started looking forward to seeing them. Not speaking, just seeing. But then one day, she stopped the jogger, asked about the dog. They talked for 10 minutes. Now, every Tuesday, they meet on the bench and talk. Nothing deep, but real. Bernice told me, that walk reminded me I'm still part of the world. I'm not just watching it. You see, walking in the morning isn't just about steps. It's about grounding. It's about reminding the anxious mind that it still belongs somewhere, that the world still moves and so do we. It gives us a rhythm, a bit of light, a sense of choice, and sometimes even a new friend. That's why I say to anyone over 65 who's feeling unsettled, don't look for a big fix. Start small, start simple. Put on your shoes. Walk, just walk. Around the block, through the trees, along the shore. Through a mall if you have to. Just start moving. You'd be surprised what returns to you along the way. Your breath, your thoughts, your peace. And that, my friend, is where we begin. Morning movement. Not just a habit, but a way to speak gently to the anxious mind. A ritual that tells your soul, you are here, you are safe, you're still living. That's the kind of quiet truth we carry here in Elderly Reflections. Let's move on to something that surprised me when I first retired. You see, I thought anxiety only came from stress, from doing too much, from working too hard. But what I didn't realize until later is that anxiety can also come from the absence of doing. When your hands aren't busy, your mind starts picking at things. Old regrets, health fears, conversations you had 5 years ago. All of it just bubbles up when there's too much stillness. That's why I believe the second habit that helps quiet the anxious mind after retirement is keeping your hands involved in something meaningful. Not work, not chores, but hands-on activities that pull your focus gently out of your head and into the moment. I'm talking about things like gardening, painting, woodworking, even kneading dough. Things that slow the mind down through touch, rhythm, and attention. Let me break this down for you with 4 real ways this habit works, each with someone who taught me what this really means. First, there's this simple act of repetition. When your hands repeat a motion, digging in the soil, brushing paint on canvas, sanding down wood, your brain slowly exits the loop of anxious thoughts. It's like you're giving your nervous system a lullaby. I learned this from Ingrid, a 76-year-old woman in Oslo, Norway. She spent her career as a nurse, then found herself alone after her sister passed. She said the silence made her feel like I was floating without a tether. One day, she went to the community center and joined a pottery class. That first afternoon, she told me, I didn't even speak to anyone. I just sat with the clay and let my hands press it. The world got quiet. Now she makes small vases, mostly gifts for neighbors or to hold wildflowers she picks. It's not about the pottery, she told me. It's the feeling of being grounded again. Second, hands-on activities help with memory and attention, which after 65 naturally starts to change. The anxious mind often jumps from one thing to the next. What if this happens? What if I forget that? But when you're focused on doing something step by step, training your mind to stay in one place. I think of Walter, a 72-year-old retired accountant in Boston. He started woodworking after his wife passed, built a bench in her memory, then moved on to birdhouses. I used to lie in bed thinking about everything I couldn't fix, he told me. Now I fix things with my hands. It quiets the noise. He showed me a tiny wooden jewelry box he made for his granddaughter. She thinks it's magic, he said, chuckling. But for me, it's therapy. When I'm carving, nothing else exists. No fear, no racing thoughts. Just wood, tools, and time. Third, these activities give you something that many retired folks don't realize they need. A small win. You see, when you're no longer working, you don't get the little accomplishments that used to keep you moving forward. No more finished reports, no more customer smiles, no more Friday feeling. Hands-on work gives that back. I met George, 69, in a small village outside Lyon, France. He grows vegetables. Every sprout is a success, he told me. When you plant something, you wait, you water, you hope, and then one morning there it is. He said it taught him patience, but also gave him a reason to get out of bed. My garden gives me small victories. That's what keeps the dark thoughts away. And finally, working with your hands often reconnects you to identity. Who you were before the job title, before the parent label, before all the noise. It lets your deeper self resurface. That's what happened to Marjorie, a 74-year-old woman in Vermont. She used to play piano as a girl, but gave it up to raise 4 kids. Decades later, in retirement, she found an old paint set in her attic and began experimenting, not trying to be good, just trying to feel. Every time I hold the brush, she told me, I remember I'm still me. Not just a widow, not just a senior. I'm still someone who sees color. She paints wild landscapes now, ones from memory, some from dreams. Her daughter framed one last Christmas. I hadn't seen her smile like that in years, her daughter said. And Marjorie? She said painting isn't about escaping her thoughts. It's about redirecting them. I paint the feeling until it fades, she whispered. That line stayed with me. Now let's talk about something that cuts deeper than most people realize. The kind of thoughts that creep in during the quiet afternoons or just before you fall asleep. It's not always loud, not always sharp, but it's there. That unsettling feeling that maybe you don't matter as much anymore, that you're slowly fading into the background. And I'll be honest with you, it's not something a lot of us like to admit, but once you stop working, once the kids grow distant, once the routine disappears, you start to wonder if your presence still holds any weight. It's about social connection, but not just chit-chat or family dinners. It's about purposeful connection, the kind that gives you a sense of usefulness, of presence, of being seen. You want to quiet the anxious mind? You have to be reminded that you still matter to someone. One way I've seen this happen over and over again is through volunteering. Now that might sound like a big ask, but it doesn't have to be. It's not about hours of commitment, it's about showing up. I remember Clifford, he's 81, lives in Cincinnati, used to be a high school science teacher. When he retired, he didn't think much of it at first. He enjoyed the peace, read books, worked on puzzles, but after a year, he started getting these strange waves of dread. Like I was disappearing slowly, he said. His daughter told him the local elementary school was looking for classroom helpers. At first he hesitated. What could I possibly offer anymore? But he went anyway. In that first week, a little boy named Ellie asked him for help with his math homework. Clifford sat beside him for 10 minutes and explained a basic fraction problem. Eli looked up and said, "You're better than Google." Clifford laughed when he told me that. "That boy gave me my purpose back," he said. He didn't know it, but he saved my mind from wandering too far. It doesn't have to be kids. I met a woman named Doreen, 72, living in Glasgow. Every Wednesday, she visits the hospice nearby and just sits with patients who have no family left. "I hold hands," she said simply. "Sometimes I read, sometimes we just sit." I asked her why she started. She told me, "Because I was tired of feeling invisible. And when I'm there, they look at me like I matter." That's the key. We don't just want to talk. We want to feel useful again. Another way to build purposeful connection is through mentoring. Sharing what you know. Elderly wisdom is one of the most overlooked resources in modern life. Young people are out there making all the same mistakes we already made. Sometimes they don't need Google. They need someone who's lived through it. I spoke with Gary, 78, a retired mechanic from Denver. He volunteers at a small community center teaching teens how to fix bikes and car engines. He told me, when I'm showing them how to loosen a bolt without stripping it, they don't see an old man. They see someone who knows. He paused and said something I'll never forget. When they ask me questions, I stop asking myself useless ones. That line hit me hard, because anxiety often comes from inner loops. doubts, fears, regret. But when someone else needs you, that loop breaks. Suddenly your mind is working for something beyond itself. Now let's move on to habit 4, which is one of the most underappreciated tools we have as older adults. Mindful stillness. I'm not talking about just sitting around. I mean intentional stillness. Mindfulness, prayer, reflection, breathing with purpose. I know some folks hear the word meditation and they picture monks on a mountaintop. But trust me, it doesn't have to look like that. It can be 5 minutes in a chair by the window. It can be 10 breaths before you go to sleep. It can be a slow prayer or just a quiet moment with yourself. The anxious mind often runs because it has no anchor. Stillness, done intentionally, gives the mind a soft place to land. Let me tell you about Lucia. She's 77, lives in Lisbon. Her husband passed away 3 years ago. She told me my thoughts started chasing each other like dogs in a yard. No rest. Her daughter gifted her a simple audio guide on mindfulness. Lucia laughed. I thought it was nonsense, she said. But she tried it. Just 5 minutes each morning, sitting by her balcony, listening to her breath and watching the birds. After a few weeks, she said, the noise didn't go away, but it quieted down. Like someone turned the volume lower. That's all we're asking for sometimes. Not silence, just softness. Another man, Pastor Elijah from Birmingham, Alabama, shared something similar. He's 83. Every morning he sits with his Bible and reads one verse aloud. Just one. Then he sits with it for 10 minutes. Not thinking, not solving, just sitting. He told me in that quiet, I remember who I am. And when I asked if it helped with his worry, he said, son, it doesn't remove the worry. It puts it in its place. Stillness is not laziness, it's medicine. Especially when we choose it. Anxiety thrives in chaos, but even 5 minutes of mindful breathing can shift your nervous system into a calmer state. It's not magic, it's biology. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure steadies, and more importantly, you stop spiraling. That's why I encourage anyone listening. Find your version of stillness. Maybe it's a prayer, maybe it's 10 deep breaths before you eat. Maybe it's sitting by the garden and just watching the wind move the leaves. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours. So here we are, 4 daily habits. None of them cost money, none of them require youth or strength or a big plan, but each one a morning movement, hands-on work, purposeful connection, mindful stillness, has the power to quiet that restless mind that so many of us carry into retirement. Not because they distract us, but because they return us to ourselves. You see, growing older doesn't mean growing smaller, it means growing deeper. And in that depth, there's room to breathe again. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in Roger and Maria and Clifford and Lucia. People who've walked through grief, through uncertainty, through the kind of silence that can feel unbearable. But each one of them found peace, not in noise, not in busyness, but in rhythm, in intention, in showing up day after day for themselves. And if today's episode of Elderly Reflections gave you even a moment of calm or made you feel seen, well, that means the world to me. If you enjoyed this, take a second to like, maybe subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. We have more stories, more elderly wisdom, and more quiet inspiration coming your way. And tell me, friend, where are you watching from today?